Cool.
All right. I'll tell you when I'm ready. Okay.
Well, you can just edit it later. It's fine.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
Hey.
Mr. Warner.
Hello.
Thank you for agreeing to do this with me.
You're very welcome.
So first question, I guess, is what's your role at New Vista and how long have you been with the school?
I'm the transition specialist at New Vista School. I've been working as the transition specialist for the last 5 years, but I've worked at New Vista for 7 years.
Okay, wow. And being there, what would you say are some common challenges that you faced with teaching or working with autistic students?
Well, there's a myriad of different challenges. Each kid is so different, it's hard to pin down just one specific thing. Of course, with all of our students, executive functioning is a huge challenge. Just managing their day-to-day tasks, regulating their emotions, depending on the level and age and functioning ability of the student. Some students have difficulty even just staying seated in a class for 50 minutes, whereas for others, it might just be maintaining focus in class, reducing outbursts, things like that.
Okay. And what would you say are some effective strategies that you've employed for issues with behavior?
Well, one thing we have that's school-wide is we have a token economy point system. So at the end of each class, a student is signed by their teacher, and students will either they could earn a 0, but they typically would earn a 1, 2, or a 3. A 2 would indicate that they met the expectations for that class. A 3 would indicate that they exceeded expectations for that class, and a 1 would be below expectations for whatever reason, because of outbursts or whatever it might be. And all of the students' points are tied into a money system at school, in which students are able to earn rewards based on the money that they've earned. It also ties in a lot to rewards they might be earning at home, such as computer time, YouTube time, or whatever it might be. We find this to be pretty effective because typically kids with autism oftentimes aren't very intrinsically motivated, and they need some sort of outside motivation in order to get them to behave, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the most broad sweeping kind of behavior strategy we have at school. Of course, as behaviors arise, we meet as a team every single Friday to discuss this and to implement different strategies with different students. Some kids have behavior cards, for example.
What's that?
They may have a card that has maybe 3 different prompts. Maybe it's sit up, raise your hand, focus on the teacher, something like that, right? And for each student, it could be different, but more often than not, if they receive 3 checks on their card, they have to go and talk to the dean of the school, who is someone that the kids do not want to talk to, and someone who will communicate with their parents and arrange different sorts of consequences and rewards, depending on what the situation is. So we try to, again, kind of have a broad sweeping behavior plan, but then implement individual behavior plans for each of the students as needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about academically? What effective strategies have you used in your time with the students as far as reaching their academic potential?
Clarity. Clarity is one of the most important things you can give for a student with autism. Listing things in a very orderly, bulleted sort of fashion is also very much effective. A lot of times, especially in English classes and things like that, if you have, for example, a paragraph that describes your directions for any given assignment, more often than not, even students who are only mildly affected by their autism, oftentimes they won't get past that first sentence. They will read that first sentence and then begin to start whatever the assignment is, write an essay, whatever it might be, without realizing there's 3 or 4 other things that they need to do. So sequentially ordering things, making it very clear that you first do this, then you do this, then you do this next thing is a great way, a great way for students to reach their academic potential, as you say.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of other strategies that we have academically.
Yeah, any other academic strategies that you can think of that might help them with homework or with confusion on assignments?
Well, one thing is all of the students, and this isn't, I don't know if you call it an academic strategy, but most of the students stay behind after school for homework help.
Oh.
So the teachers make themselves available after school to help and clarify. A lot of the students have one-to-one tutors in order to, again, help them with their homework. We're also going very digital. So most of the kids have their assignments posted on something called Google Classroom, which makes it very easy for them to track what their assignments are, to be able to check things off as they go, and to know that they have to click done to show that they've finished each assignment. So it's a great way for them, because oftentimes what will happen if a student with autism doesn't have these sorts of checks in the set up for them so that they know what to finish, they'll arrive to class not even knowing whether they finished their homework or not.
Oh, wow.
So having something like that and just prompting them continuously to check Google Classroom is a great way to actually get them to do their homework and to focus on their homework. Using a lot of video modeling is one of the most effective ways to teach a lot of our students. A lot of our students are much more visual than auditory learners, so lecturing at kids isn't usually the most effective means to teach them anything. So a lot of visuals, a lot of kinesthetic sort of things, a lot of role playing through things, working with their hands, actually feeling tactile objects is a great way to teach. Depending on what the content is, of course.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and then do you have any pointers for new teachers?
New teachers working with students with autism, or just
working in integrated classrooms where we'll have autistic students in. For me, it'll be an English classroom where autistic students mild mod students may be interspersed with the class of regular students.
Sure. So. One thing is, and this is true for just teachers in general, is patience. To work with people with autism requires, of course, a lot of care and compassion on your part, but you must be patient with them because oftentimes, and you could even say this is an academic strategy as well, repetition is so very important. A lot of times these concepts, or even your directions that you may be giving a kid, even to just go sit in their chair, that may be something that because maybe their auditory processing is delayed or whatever the reason might be, you may find yourself repeating directions many times. So being patient with students, showing them that you care, trying to understand their way of thinking, and not taking things personally. Students with autism are very blunt. Oftentimes they don't have very much of a filter, and their social skills are impacted. And because of that, they're going to say things that might hurt your feelings sometimes, or they're going to make observations that could be embarrassing. So working with kids with autism, you certainly want to remember to have a little bit of
thick skin.
Yeah, a little bit of thick skin. I almost want to say emotionally detached, but you also have to make yourself vulnerable to these kids and show them that you care, because they're so used to just being, stuck in a corner in a classroom somewhere and kind of glossed over and passed along to the next grade, when really they need a little more time and affection from the teacher and a healthy dose of understanding.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for meeting with me.
You're welcome.